Ask yourself the damn question. Is winning the only thing to you?
Sports today are not just played on the field. They're played every day, online, all over the world, by sports fans just like you.
Don't you dare breathe. That won't get you anywhere. If you don't think you're a winner, you don't belong here.
The Star Fantasy League Show puts you in control of your own team. Find out who to sit, who to start, how to play, and have your daily fantasy sports questions answered with your host, Jonathan Sprung, and co-host SFL CEO Zach Stanley and Nick Steblenko. The Star Fantasy League Show is on the air now.
Hello, Radio Universe. Welcome to the Star Fantasy League Show here on 105.5 The Team. I'm your host today, Matthew Footer, in for Jonathan Sprung as he decided to leave his seat open for me for this whole week. Very appreciative of it, but we are going to make fun of him as much as possible. Sitting to my immediate right is not Nick Steblenko, not Zach Stanley. It is Jason Granger. Jason, how you doing, man?
Good to be here. Some of us had to stay here and hold down the fort while the rest of us went off to Vegas, gallivanting throughout the streets of wherever they're doing.
That is true. I kind of feel like the parents are out of town and we're the kids, and we're just kind of taking everything out under our control now. We can kind of do whatever we want to a certain degree. We're going to kind of push the line a little bit.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I know the guys were ragging on us last week that we weren't going to do a good job or we're not going to talk enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Or loud enough. So hopefully we get it right for you guys out there. We'll be here all week.
Yes, exactly. So to start the show, I think we always kind of jump into the local flair here, living in Western New York, being in Rochester. So we got to talk about the Buffalo Bills. Jason, you're not a Bills fan yourself, are you?
I am not. I am a 49er fan.
Well, I applaud you on your effort yesterday and your win. I unfortunately am a Bills fan. So this is a team that's near and dear to my heart, and I can kind of speak to what happened yesterday. The Bills were down by the Houston Texans 23-17 yesterday in what was probably one of the most awful games to watch I've ever seen. Did you happen to catch any of the game?
Yeah, I did watch like maybe half the game. It's probably because I started Ryan Fitzpatrick on one of my teams, which probably was a questionable decision at best, I guess you could say. But
it was a tough week. There were 6 teams on bye, so I'm assuming he was filling in for somebody who was on a bye.
Well, I actually had dropped Ryan Tannehill for Fitzpatrick, and then, of course, Tannehill went off a little bit against the Raiders. But
yeah,
it happens.
What are you going to do? But yeah, across the whole board, running backs, wide receivers, both teams, it was pretty much an ugly game. I mean, on the Bills side, E.J. Manuel threw the ball 44 times, including 25 times in the first half. Can you really figure that out, knowing how bad Houston was on stopping the run?
Yeah, I looked at the stats after the game, and I could not believe he threw the ball 44 times. I mean, if he's throwing that much, he's definitely going to be making mistakes. I don't know why they would be throwing the ball that much. I figured they'd have a lot more, running plays, obviously, Spiller and Jackson. But both defenses were pretty good early on in the game, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills didn't get a converted first down until like the mid-second quarter, which was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, they got helped out by some roughing the passer calls there to get out to an early lead. I don't know. It was kind of a muddy game to say at best there, especially in the first half.
Oh, yeah, there was penalties on both sides. E.J. Manuel threw the ball 25 times in the first half, and coming into the game last week, Houston gave up 176 yards on the ground to Rashad Jennings.
That's right.
I figured all day they're just going to run the ball. And, people are saying, well, it's all EJ's fault. But if the offensive coordinator is calling all these pass plays, what's he supposed to do?
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I know Spiller ran 15 times. Jackson only ran 7 times. He did have 6 catches, but I mean, I don't really know what to think of that. I know a lot of people are calling for EJ's head today.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand it, but at the same time, I mean, you can only do so much when you're told by your coaching staff, don't run for that extra yard, don't make the the second pass, go for their first one, go for that check down. Yeah. So you can only do so much with the tools that you're given around you. So
yeah, is Kyle Orton really that big of an upgrade at this point?
I mean, honestly don't know.
He hasn't really even played a full season at this point. He was out pretty much half the season last year. So I don't know.
I believe he's at 14 games, I think, started now. So
yeah, you guys drafted him that high. You might as well give him another couple of games to figure it out. I know the Bills have a tough schedule coming up the next couple of games at Detroit and then New England at home. I don't know. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a struggle. I'm thinking they're probably not going to do so well here the next couple of games. But
the next two games could be a big test and a big determination how the season's going to continue to go, starting off with 2 wins and then followed by 2 losses. On the Houston side, like you said, there wasn't much done on that side as well. Fitzpatrick ended up throwing for about 270 yards, running the ball. I mean, Bills absolutely shut down the running game altogether.
Yeah, Foster didn't do much. I know he was questionable coming into the game. He did play. He didn't really have any yards rushing. I know he had a couple catches. But, yeah, they shut down Houston pretty well. And on the defensive side of the ball, Houston, I mean, J.J. Watt seemed to dominate the game pretty much.
The guy's a beast. All day, I think he had somewhere around 6 QB pressures. Didn't really have a sack, but he was in the backfield all day. He was hitting manual at his legs and his face, everything left and right. And then, of course, the huge interception return for a touchdown. That was the game changer right there.
Yeah, well, he's got 2 touchdowns this year. Now I think that's more than what? I got a list here, actually. Jamal Charles has no touchdown.
Oh, boy.
LaShawn McCoy, I think, has 1. Adrian Peterson. Matt Forte has no touchdowns. Eddie Lacy has 1. Demaryius Thomas 1. A.J. Green 1. Alshon Jeffrey 1. Monte Ball, Le'Veon Bell, Aaron Foster all have 1. So
what you're saying is I'd rather have J.J. Watt playing right now than any one of those guys.
Yeah, if you're in a league that had IDPs, individual defensive player drafted, which I am in a league that does that, but I don't have Watt on my team, but he's tearing it up this year.
Yeah, he single-handedly won that game for Houston yesterday. I mean, they had a couple nice catches by DeAndre Hopkins, the 1 touchdown before the end of the half. Andre Johnson had a respectable game, 71 yards. But beyond that, I mean, he pretty much single-handedly owned the Bills' front line yesterday, who were starting 2 rookies on that offensive line as well.
Yeah, it wasn't good for the Bills, really, in pretty much any facet of the game. I know Manuel did end up with a couple touchdowns. He had the big play to Williams, which brought him back in there. Some breakdowns in the secondary for Houston. But, I don't know, at the end of the game, he just couldn't pull it through.
Yeah, it's a tough ending to a sloppy game, but a game that the Bills could have easily won.
Yep.
But looking ahead, we got Monday Night Football tonight. We do have a rival of the Bills, New England Patriots at the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes. New England's 2-1, Chiefs are 1-2. What's your thoughts on this game heading into it?
I think this could be potentially a low-scoring game tonight. I think both New England's defense has been playing great this year. Their offense has really struggled. Kansas City's coming off a pretty unexpected blowout in Miami.
Yeah.
And they played Denver really well in Denver. I think they lost by a touchdown. So I could see this being a pretty low-scoring game tonight, I think.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from because Mal Davis filling in for Jamal Charles, although it looks like Charles back, he kind of kept them in that game against Denver by himself. And then last week they were able to, the good Alex Smith showed up. He was kind of able to, manage the game, feed the ball to Davis when needed and, make the plays that needed.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much Charles plays tonight. And if the Patriots do shut him down, I know that they like to key on the offensive weapons for the opposing teams. They usually shut that guy down. So it'll be interesting to see how much he plays and if he's effective at all.
Yeah. If I was to tell you the 2 quarterbacks in this game, who's completed 63% of his passes and who's completed 58%, who would you think was the 63%?
Well, obviously you'd think it's Brady, but I know it's Alex Smith.
Yes, you're correct. Alex Smith has completed 63% of his passes this year, whereas Brady is under that 60% mark, which is kind of unbelievable. Do you think he's kind of on his downslide at this point?
Well, they do have a lot of new pieces coming into this season at wide receiver. I mean, LaFell pretty much is the big one, but Gronk's been injured. He's only played about 45% of the offensive snaps this year, so hopefully he's going to see some more action tonight as I have him on most of my fantasy teams. But I know Brady's 30th in the league with a 5.5 yards per attempt, and his 83 passer rating is 23rd in the league right now. He's completed just 1 of 13 attempts, 21 yards or longer downfield. So he could be on the downslide. I think he'll probably turn it around once everything starts to gel a little better as the season goes on. So it's Tom Brady. We expect him to come around.
It's interesting to see what kind of running game they can get going. The last couple of weeks, Ridley looks like the guy after starting the season kind of in the doghouse, as Vereen was the guy. But now they kind of have seemed to switch roles. And on the receiving side, I mean, he trusts Julian Edelman basically with his life. The guy's tearing up the league, I believe he's leading the league in targets, and he's close to near the top in receptions before this week as well. So
I know he's thinking he has 22 receptions. The second guy on that team is Gronk. Only has 11. So that just shows you how bad they've been on offense this year. with Gronk only playing half the snaps basically. So,
And speaking of the Chiefs side, again, it'll be interesting to see if the good Alex Smith shows up. Obviously, he kind of has faith in his check down guys. Travis Kelce is a leading receiver with 116 yards and a touchdown. He's kind of been a surprise this year as well.
Yeah, I think he was kind of a sleeper pick going into the year as far as fantasy was concerned. I know he had a decent year last year, but I think he's on the upslide. I know Alex Smith trusts his tight ends. We saw that in San Francisco and obviously now in Kansas City. And, I don't know. We'll see if Smith does well tonight. I'm expecting him to have a decent game. But like I said, the Patriots defense has been basically holding that team together this year.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to watch this game, not only because I am a Bills fan, but I think it's a good test for Kansas City at home, as well as a good test for New England on the road to see what they're really made of. See if they're still the powerhouse of the AFC, including the AFC East.
Yeah, definitely a big game for the East to see how kind of things are shaking out in that division. I know that it's probably going to be a really tight division this year. The Dolphins have looked better the last couple of games. They'll be okay, I think. Jets have been okay. I think this is kind of just anybody's, division to take at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, to kind of give you some insight into what team you like, why don't we jump into the 49ers and Eagles just to kind of wrap this thing up real quick, and we can talk about a few of the games this week.
Yeah, it was a pretty impressive win for the Niners yesterday. I know they held the Eagles to only 213 total yards, which was the second fewest under Chip Kelly. They only had 22 rushing yards, which was the fewest by any team this season. A lot of that was due to the early, they jumped out to that huge lead with the 3 defensive and special teams touchdowns. And the Niners finally scored in the second half. They scored a touchdown finally. They only had 3 points this year in the second half, so that was nice to see.
Well, it looks like Harbaugh's going back to his old philosophy of, let's run the ball and, try to play sound defense. Because, they had the kick return and the interception, but the defense was looking pretty good on for most of the game.
Yeah, that's what they've been great at the last few years under Harbaugh is play solid defense, get the running game going, and, try, Kaepernick runs around but not making many mistakes. I know he threw an interception yesterday, but as long as they're running the ball, they're controlling the clock, kind of like what we've seen from San Diego this year. Is you control the clock, you control the ground game, and that's a recipe for success.
Yeah, I was very interested in because that was the only 4 o'clock game yesterday. It was interesting to see the 49ers make that stand at the last second of the end of the game. That was
nice to see.
So coming out of the break, we're going to start with John's favorite segment. I'm a big fan of it, I guess. Do you like it much?
I don't know.
All right, we're going to come back. We're going to do some Donald's Mailbag, and we're going to talk more here on the Star Fantasy League Show on 105.5 The Team.
The Star Fantasy League Show. Information is key to being a successful fantasy team owner, and the guys have all the updated info you need right now. Okay, fantasy sports fans.
There's a letter in your mailbox.
Time to dig into Donald's mailbag for your questions and comments.
Read the mail, read the mail, read the mail.
Jump in the game. Send your questions and comments to the Star Fantasy League's team by tweeting at SFL Show.
And we're back with the Star Fantasy League Show here on 105.5 The Team. I am not Jonathan Sprung. I'm actually Matt Footer filling in this week for him. And we also have Jason Granger filling in for both guys, Nick Steblenko and Zach Stanley.
Yeah, big shoes to fill right there, I guess, in terms of size for Nick. Right?
Oh, man, there's a shot. There's the first one of the show. That's okay. We got to get him in there while we can. So
well, I'm excited to see if you're going to name this mailbag. Is it going to be Jonathan's? We got to have a different name for it.
We'll go with Footer's Mailbag because that's what they tend to call me on the show. It's just my last name. So we'll go with Footer's Mailbag. I can't think of anything catchy right now. I got all week to come up with something. So hopefully by Friday I can come up with something even better than Jonald. So we're going to jump right in. And we got a question from David S. With the regular season ending yesterday, who do you like in the postseason? I'm assuming he's talking about baseball here. You can be more discreet about it. But do you see the Cardinals getting back to the World Series? Okay, yeah, he is talking about baseball here. So
yeah, baseball's postseason's here, starting tomorrow with the play-in game, the wild card game. We got a game tomorrow. We have a game on Wednesday, and then the actual, I guess you could say, postseason really begins. But we broke down a little brackets today. We did our brackets.
We did.
And Surprisingly, I have the Washington Nationals winning it all.
Really?
This year. Yes, I'm going with the Nationals.
So I was looking at the brackets today. So I guess we can kind of go game by game or series by series right now. We'll kind of do a bigger overview. So we'll start with the American League wild card. We got the Royals playing the Athletics in the play-in game. So who do you got in this game?
Well, I don't know if you know, but I'm a huge A's fan.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I was sweating this out the second half of the year. They really, really were on the downslide there.
Yeah.
They barely got in, and thankfully now there is a second wild card because they wouldn't have made it otherwise.
That's true.
The Royals would have been in, which is super disappointing considering how well they started this year. But I got to like Leicester in this game. Going up against Shields, I got to go with my A's.
Fair enough. I actually am going the same way with you. I'm going to take Oakland. I just feel like they always seem to rise up when the time comes in the postseason, big games like this. Yeah, it did seem like once they acquired Leicester, they did actually kind of go in the downspin, which was surprising.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more tomorrow since we'll probably break down the game. But, yeah, when they made the trade, you weren't here. It was July 31st. I saw that the news was coming in that Leicester was going for Cespedes, and I just could not believe it. I hated the trade. I said it on that day on the radio. And, yeah, it kind of worked out the way I thought it would. But, yeah, luckily they made it. So
Perfect. So we'll jump to the other side for the other wild card game. We got San Francisco, the Giants playing at Pittsburgh. The matchup is Bumgarner versus Volquez. Who do you got in this game, actually?
I'm going Giants here.
Okay.
So I like both road teams, both Bay Area teams. I think with Madison Bumgarner on the mound, I think they're going to take this. And I think the Pirates really messed up. They started Garrett Cole yesterday, which they really didn't need to. Obviously, they had a chance still to win the Central, but I think that they would have been more suited to pitch Cole in this game. Obviously, you don't know really what Volquez is going to bring. Is he going to blow up or is he going to have a great game? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I'll admit right here on the air, I'm not as big a fantasy baseball baseball fan as I am compared to football and hockey and the other sports. So to me, I might be coming with a blind eye for a few of these series, but I'm going to take Pittsburgh in this game just to be different. I like to see the Pirates actually, because they lost last year in the play-in game. I like to see them actually jump in the playoffs this year. It's fun seeing the Royals and the Pirates and all these new teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Pirates win, but I got to go with the Giants on this one.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll kind of jump back to the previous one we talked about Oakland. So Oakland, if they win, they would end up be playing probably the team you hate the most.
Yes, I hate the Angels. I hate Mike Scioscia more than
I can't stand him either. I'm a Yankees fan, and they killed us for years in the early 2000s. So
yeah. When both these teams played this year, Angels finished 10-9 against the A's. So if the A's make it, I have the Angels beating them, just because I think their offense is far superior. We've seen that the A's can't hit in the second half of the year. Obviously, they have a better pitching staff, but in a 5-game series, I'm giving the edge to the Angels.
Yeah, it's always interesting, the division series in baseball, because being a 5-game series, you don't need someone to, possibly go 7 games. You can have someone start the first game and the 5th game, and then there's 2 of your wins right there. You only need one more from your starter. So if you got a stud ace like the Angels do in Jared Weaver, he can get that first win for you. And if you have to come back in Game 5, even Game 4 sometimes, I've seen that before where they have to come back and get that.
Yeah, as an A's fan, I know we've been in the ALDS, I don't know how many times. The last couple of years, it's been Verlander that's knocked us out in 5 games. I hate the 5-game series for the ALDS. I think it should be 7 games. If the A's do squeak by the Angels, they're really set up for the next 2 rounds possibly with the pitching staff that they've put together. So we'll see. Okay,
so we'll jump back over to the NL, talking about how you have the Giants against the Nationals.
Yes.
I have the Pirates against the Nationals. Who do you like in this series? You said the Nationals, but how many games do you foresee them winning?
I'm thinking Nats take this 3-1.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that now, we'll see Strasburg, how he does in the postseason. Now that he's finally there, they're allowing him to pitch in the postseason. They've got a great, I think, all-around team. So
fair enough.
Stick with the Nats.
If the Giants make it through, actually the Nationals pretty much owned them this year. They were 6-1 against them. If the Pirates make it through, they were only 4-3 against them. So I think they can give them a little bit more trouble. But I'm going to stick with you, and I think the Nationals end up winning this series.
All right.
Back on the other side of the American League, we have Detroit facing Baltimore in the other series that we definitely know is going to happen. So who do you got in this one?
I think the Tigers take this one pretty easily. They beat up on the Orioles this year, 5-1. Tigers, they won the Central. They got it done. They've got a great pitching staff as well, just like Oakland. I think I don't know if the Orioles have enough to do it.
Yeah, Orioles did, if I'm not mistaken, did lead the league this year in home runs, so they do have the power. But Detroit averages almost 5 runs per game, so it's going to be I think a pretty offensive series, even with the amount of good pitchers featured in the series. I think it's going to go 5, but I do see Detroit winning this. They did win the season series pretty handily as well. So
yeah, I've got Tigers 3-1.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Back on the other side of the NL, we got St. Louis versus the Dodgers. St. Louis always seems to make a miracle run in October. Do you think they have it again this year?
Well, no, I think the Dodgers are going to take this one. I think it's going to be 3-2. I think just because you're going to have Kershaw pitching 2 of those games, that's almost a guaranteed win for both of those games. And then you figure they got to take another one at home. So I'm thinking it'll go 5 games.
Even though he's in a large market, I don't think the typical baseball fan really is taking in, I'm going to say this includes myself, really takes in how much of an amazing piece of talent Clayton Kershaw is and how much of a once-in-generation type pitcher he really is.
Yeah, he's had just a remarkable season. I know in his last 21 starts, the Dodgers have won 20 of those.
Yeah. So
that's just crazy. And so if he's pitching 2 times in this 5-game series, I think you got to go Dodgers.
I'm going to actually take St. Louis in 5 because I do want to be different. I want to have a little controversy on this show. But just something about the Cardinals, whether it's La Russa coaching there or Mike Matheny, it just seems like this team comes together in October and manages to either get really far or win the World Series. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the pieces the Dodgers have, especially Puig, if he does anything this postseason. He hasn't had a great second half. I know Kemp's really come on. Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of money invested into that team, so it'll be interesting to see.
Definitely. So in the ALCS, we'll start with you and kind of give us a breakdown. Who do you got over there?
I've got Tigers over the Angels in 7 games.
Okay.
I think this is going to be a really great series. Either Tigers versus A's or Tigers versus Angels. I'm thinking definitely going to be a long series here.
Yeah, I actually have the same prediction as you. I have the Tigers in 7. The Angels did win the season series, but it was only 4-3.
Right.
The Angels look like they've really kind of just been coasting the last couple of weeks, and we know always about, at least from what I understand in postseason baseball, teams that come in hot or teams that come in really super cold or just kind of floating their way around tend to get knocked out in the playoffs. So
yeah, you definitely want to be hot at the end of the season. Most of these teams haven't been hot. I mean, you can say the Orioles may be the hottest out of all these teams, but the Tigers have been slumping, the A's have been slumping, the Angels have kind of been just been coasting, so it'll be interesting.
Definitely. And on the NL side, you got?
I have the Nats against the Dodgers in 6.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in the World Series, I've got Nats over Tigers in 7.
Okay, fair enough. I did pick St. Louis. I think St. Louis, I like them this year. I'm going to actually ride them all the way through. I got them in 6 against Washington, and I got them in 6 over Detroit.
Wow.
So I'm jumping on the Cardinals bandwagon. What can I say? I just enjoy watching the team experience. It's kind of a different brand of baseball compared to some other teams. So it's just something I enjoy watching. So thank you, David S. That was actually a great question for to get into baseball. Oh, we got another one. Bill W. asks, who do you see taking down the major awards? Again, I'm assuming baseball because he says Cy Young in here. MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, Manager of the Year in baseball. Okay, so he puts it at the end.
I think a lot of these are going to be pretty obvious. In the AL MVP, I've got Trout, which
I got the same. I don't even think there's an argument there.
Yeah.
If the Mariners had made the playoffs, I could see Cano possibly getting some votes there, but kind of falling up short right there really kind of, I think, sealed his fate.
Yeah, Miggy's got him the last couple of years. Obviously, one of those was the Triple Crown year, so he's been close, but I think this is his year. In the NL, I'm going Kershaw.
Okay. I actually have the exact same thing. So
right.
I don't really think there's competition. They talked about McCutchen. They talked about Giancarlo Stanton. I think losing the last couple of weeks for Stanton really kind of hindered it, as well as being on a terrible Miami team.
Yeah, he had a chance to, go have a great season. I know he lost like 20 days. He had 37 home runs. I hate giving the award to a pitcher, but I think Kershaw probably deserves it this year. As I said, in his last 21 starts, the Dodgers are 20-1. So.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's probably your Cy Young guy as well in the NL side.
That would be correct.
Yeah.
In the AL, I'm going Corey Kluber actually.
Okay.
Over Felix. I think it's going to be super close. I know Felix faltered a little bit towards the end of the year, and I think Kluber's just been more dominant as a whole. Throughout the season, and his starting pitcher WAR is 7.3 compared to Felix at 6.7, and it's only second in the majors to Kershaw at 7.5. So he's had a great year. Both of them had a great year. It's going to be a tight race there.
Yeah, I got Felix in the AL just because what he did the whole season long. Unfortunately, I think a lot of times these awards are biased towards the guy who had more recognizable names. To round out Rookie of the Year and AL side?
I think AL's pretty obvious. Jose Abreu has just had a monster year. And in the NL, I've got Jacob deGrom for the Mets over Billy Hamilton.
Were you copying my notes? Because I had those exact same ones. But I think it's pretty kind of a consensus all across the board.
All these awards should be, except probably maybe the Manager of the Year.
Okay.
I've got Buck Showalter in the East. That might be the more obvious one. And I'm going Matt Williams in the NL.
I actually went with Matt Williams for the Nationals. I'm going to go with Ned Yost of the Kansas City Royals to get the team in the playoffs for the first time in 30 seasons. The last time they were playing, George Brett was the star of the team. That's pretty impressive. So thank you. We'll probably come back, talk a couple more questions about the mailbag. And you're listening to the Star Fantasy League show on 105.5 The Team.
Play fantasy sports for cash prizes. Join the top daily and weekly fantasy leagues in the country at starfantasyleagues.com. Now, back to the Star Fantasy League show with Jonathan, Zach, and Nick, only on The Team.
Wrong, as John would say. Wrong all across the board. We are back on the Star Fantasy League show on 105.5 The Team. I am Matt Footer filling in for Jonathan Sprung. We have Jason filling in for the other two. As we said before, I think we're doing a heck of a job so far.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Cage guy is going to be wrong all week. Are you familiar with the Cage guy? The guy that speaks into our ears before every set.
I am somewhat familiar. They were calling me the Cage guy to begin with. I wasn't quite understanding what that meant, but now I am starting to pick up on it. Being the new guy, you kind of get hassled around a little bit, but I think I'm starting to lose that title, which is good.
That's good. Yeah. So he's going to be wrong, I think, all week.
Fair enough. We're going to do one more question that came into us through Jonald's mailbag, or as I'm calling it, Footer's mailbag this week. MD writes, two football questions. All right, two-part question. I know Steve Smith is old, true, but is he the real deal or another sell-high option? What do you think about this? He had a great game yesterday again.
Yeah, he keeps impressing this year. I know I benched him on one team, which upset me. I forget who I put in for him. I forgot that he was going against his old team.
And he did say it was going to be a bloodbath. Get your goggles ready.
Yeah,
so.
Blood and guts or something like that was the quote. And he definitely showed up to play. 7 catches, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns. That first one on the tipped play by Owen Daniels was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that was a great play.
But, yeah, Flacco seems to be looking his way a lot this year, which surprises me. I know a lot of people drafted Torrey Smith pretty high.
Me.
Nick was really high on him, and I know he did have a touchdown yesterday. But, yeah, he's definitely surprised a lot of people.
Flacco is slinging the ball this year. You think with all the controversy that's been around the running game, and you're still hearing guys hear about, Forsett and Taliaferro run the ball, but Flacco is throwing the ball like it is his job, you know what I mean? But he's
like the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Right?
Essentially, yeah. So to me, I think he is a real deal. I wouldn't sell him personally. I think he's going to keep getting the targets, keep getting the catches.
Yeah, I guess I'd hang on to him for now. I know one of these games he's probably going to have a dud, but he seems to be there for the long haul.
The other part of MD's question is Dwayne Bowe worth stashing, or is he gone from wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 tiers? I think this answer is pretty obvious, but I'm going to let you answer this one first.
Yeah, I'd say he's gone.
Yeah.
Get rid of him. I know, and you got Alex Smith there. He's not going to have these huge games anymore like he used to. I know Smith isn't great at throwing the long ball, which is one of his specialties for Bowe. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm not starting him on any team. And
no.
I don't even know why he roster him at this point.
No, he really hasn't had a big game since Matt Castle's was there. I mean, since Smith took over last season, he really has just been kind of, 5 catches, 50 yards, 4 catches, 37 yards. Just like that. That's a type of Dwayne Bowe type game, and that's not good enough in fantasy. That's not good enough for a flex position, let alone wide receiver 1 or 2.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they've had great chemistry since Smith has come over. I don't know if that's dealing with Bowe's injuries or being not on the field or that much or practice, whatever. But, yeah, get rid of him.
Yeah. Thank you for all those questions this week. Again, you can always tweet us at SFL Show to any questions you want answered live on the show, fantasy questions, sports questions, anything you want to hear. We'll be happy to read them on the air. Speaking of big surprises this year, and Steve Smith, who was some of your biggest surprises in Week 4 in the NFL?
There were quite a few surprises yesterday. If you want to look at Minnesota, you had Bridgewater's first start. I don't think anybody thought he was going to do that great.
I didn't.
I know he got injured towards the end of the game. Hopefully he'll be back.
He did come out. He said this afternoon that he's feeling good, and most likely they are on a short week against Green Bay on Thursday. But it looks like he is going to end up playing. So.
And then he had Jarius Wright on the Vikings.
Yeah.
Just went off. 8 catches, 132 yards. Looked like Bridgewater's favorite target there. Mm-hmm. I don't even think anybody owned him on Star Fantasy Leagues this weekend.
Don't doubt it.
Yeah.
Although a few weeks ago, I did say Jarius Wright was
I did hear you say that.
He was a good play. I just was 3 weeks off. I pulled the old Zach Stanley and say it 2 weeks before then. It's actually the case. So. Someone else in that game was Matt Asiata. I think you were probably going to get to him. I mean, he only had 78 yards, but 3 touchdowns yesterday. I mean, that's gold in fantasy football right there.
Yeah, he matched his career total of 3 rushing touchdowns, which also came all in one game last year.
Yes.
So
it was actually less. I saw the stat today. Less than 10 months, he's done 3 touchdowns in a single game twice.
So if you're going to own Asiata for Peterson being out, hopefully he has a few more of these big games. I know I drafted Peterson pretty high on a couple teams, and I had to drop him on one league. I actually dropped him for Trent Richardson this week, which is total blow below the belt there. But
yeah,
Richardson did it right for me yesterday.
He did pay off.
He was one of my surprises, actually.
Yeah, speaking along the running back side, I had the other Minnesota running back as well, Jerick McKinnon, who I did like as well a few weeks ago. Yeah. I got hated on by Jonathan a little bit, but
he hates on everybody. It's okay.
That's true. 135 yards on 18 carries. Do you think he's the guy who's going to be getting the touches there? Is the Asiata's more of the goal line back?
It seems like they're probably going to run with a 2-headed monster there. I know McKinnon's got the speed. Asiata's got the brawn, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, he when he runs, he doesn't really run. It looks like he's running like cement, and he's just kind of moving forward, and the line's pushing him forward. He's not the best runner, but he's just so big that he just kind of bowls people over. Yeah,
McKinnon's definitely a guy you want to add this week if you haven't already. He's going to be the guy that supplements Peterson or passes him, whatever happens to Peterson. We saw the speed on that. He had like a 60-yard carry there.
Yeah.
That was great play, and obviously he had a great game.
I have a feeling he's going to be talked about as in our Tuesday segment of waiver wire pickups. Continuing along with the running backs, I'd like to give some props to your boy Frank Gore there. 119 yards and 1 awesome reception for 55 yards on a wide open play. What was going on there on the defensive side for Philadelphia?
I don't know. That was a crazy throw by Kaepernick just to find him over there and sling it. It was his longest, I think, reception of his career.
Yeah.
He usually doesn't have those huge catches.
No, I think Troy Aikman said in the game, if I would ever do that, I would be benched for the rest of the game. But Kaepernick, kind of has free reign because of all the tools that he's able to, showcase on the field.
He pulled it off for sure. I was looking at surprises considering on Star Fantasy Leagues, big games under 20% owned in the big GPP. Mm-hmm. DeMarco Murray.
Really?
Only 5% owned last night against the Saints. Went off for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's had just an amazing season so far for Dallas.
I think he's leading the next closest rusher by almost 150 yards, somewhere around there.
Le'Veon Bell, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Again, on Star Fantasy Leagues, it helps picking guys who are great value, but sometimes you do have to just pick the big boys and go with them because you're going to get the points. And
I was surprised not many people had him considering he was going against the Saints. But I saw he's the 4th player in NFL history to begin a season with 4 games of 100 yards and a rushing touchdown. So hopefully the fantasy gods don't take him from us this year and he doesn't get injured. And if you own him,
for any Murray fan up there, just there's always that caution with him, especially because he has a tendency to get injured at some point in the season. Yep. Going along the wide receiver route, you did mention Jarius Wright earlier. I'd like to toss in Steve Smith Sr. just because of the amount of yards he did put up, 140 yards. It was his first 2 touchdown game since week 1 of Cam Newton's rookie season. So 3 years ago,
nice.
that was the first time he's had 2 touchdowns. So he was another guy who was kind of surprising for the week. Do you have anybody else?
How about Eddie Royal?
Yeah, I did have him down as well.
5 catches, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns, only 4% owned. Great game. Terrence Williams for Dallas.
Yeah.
Another guy I think like 1% maybe had him or maybe nobody. 6 catches, 77 yards, a couple touchdowns. Andre Holmes was another guy.
I mean, Oakland has no one out there. So, and it seems like anyone they put in there. Did you see that catch by James Jones, by the way, along the sideline?
Yes, I did.
That was awesome.
I know. We'll see how long Carr's going to be out there, but the Raiders could be in trouble.
Yeah. One other guy I'd like to toss in the mix is Jeff Ross. Yes, Jeff Ross, not the comedian, the football player for Detroit. He had 65 yards and 1 touchdown. He kind of stole the touchdown away from Golden Tate owners and Calvin Johnson owners and anybody else who owns a Detroit Lion right there. But do you foresee him kind of getting any value, especially with Johnson kind of lamed up at this point?
Well, yeah, if Johnson's just going to be out there as a decoy, you could see Ross. I don't know how many targets he had. I know he just had the 1 catch, right? But, I don't know, Calvin was a huge disappointment yesterday, that's for sure. I know a lot of people were on him going against the Jets and their awful passing, secondary there.
Yeah, I mean, Detroit has Buffalo's awful passing secondary coming in this week. Most likely they'll put Gilmore on Calvin Johnson if they need to, but it'll be interesting to see if he ends up playing. Along the tight end side, there's a couple guys that I saw who had huge games. One of them was Heath Miller out of nowhere. 10 receptions. 10
catches, 85 yards, a touchdown.
Yeah.
He was only 3% owned on Star Fantasy Leagues. And then we had the reemergence of Clay Harbor for the Jaguars.
Who?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Clay. 8 catches, 69 yards. He seemed to be a little favorite target there for Bortles.
Yeah.
I think
Bortles looked pretty good yesterday against a really strong San Diego defense. You knew there was no shot in that game. I mean, they did lead at one point, but they did that earlier in the season. But he looked pretty good.
Yeah, he did okay, especially in the first half. I know the second half he kind of got it handed to him there a little bit. 32% had him. I had him kind of as a disappointment. He only ended up with 14 points just because of the high percentage of ownership he had. But he did decent, I guess.
Yeah, a couple other disappointments along the QB side. Obviously, Nick Foles, he came out and threw duds all day. At one point, I think into the fourth quarter, he still hadn't scored any fantasy points in most leagues. And that's pretty bad coming from a guy who was lighting it up last week.
Yeah, obviously, it was the defensive special teams there for the Eagles that kind of stole the show there in the first half. I think the Eagles didn't get across the Niners' 40-yard line until like the fourth quarter, right? So definitely disappointment. I kind of had Drew Brees as a disappointment.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, he had 340 yards and a touchdown, 1 interception. You figured he would have gone off for a little bit more than 21 fantasy points against Dallas.
I have to fault the play calling right there of Sean Payton a lot in that game. That fourth down play where they punt it, and you have one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and why wouldn't you just roll him out there if you're down that far?
Yeah, and what happened to Pierre Thomas? He was non-existent.
Yeah.
The whole first half, and he only had a couple carries. They had Cadet out there who I hadn't really seen this year.
Yeah, he hauled in a couple catches. It'll be interesting to see how that running back situation is there. Speaking of running backs, we got to talk about LaShawn McCoy again. 10 rushes, 17 yards. Second straight week where he's been under 30 yards rushing. What's going on there?
I am not sure, really. I know they're going against the Niners. They have a great running defense. I don't know. I mean, everybody drafted McCoy probably as their first pick of the year. Obviously, Sproles,
one of them.
Sproles has come in there, taken away some carries, some catches.
Even he didn't do anything really yesterday.
Yeah, just the punt return. I don't know. I guess it's kind of a wait-and-see approach if he's going to get it back together.
Yeah. I mean,
you gotta keep starting him, though.
Yeah, you either have to roll with him or try to trade him right now. And unfortunately, you're not going to get fair value for him, but you just got to hope that if you're going to trade him, this is what's expected the rest of the year, and whoever you're getting in return is going to outshine that. Do you have anybody else along the running back side?
Yeah, Donald Brown. Huge disappointment. I think he was probably the highest owned player across the industry. Only 19 yards rushing on 10 carries.
Yeah, you would have thought against a poor Jacksonville defense he would have done more. He only had 4 catches for a total of 14 total touches. I put him as a top 10 back this past week.
Definitely. So, huge disappointment there.
Yeah, exactly. Coming back out of the break, we're going to finish up with the biggest disappointments as wide receivers and tight ends. And you're listening to the Star Fantasy League show on 105.5 The Team.
You're listening to the Star Fantasy League show. Contact the StarFantasyLeagues.com guys via Twitter at SFL Show.
We are back for the final segment here on the Star Fantasy League show on 105.5 The Team. Again, I am Matt Footer filling in this week for Jonathan Sprung. So if you're tuning in to hear him, come back next week. But I hope you stay with us.
Why would you be tuning in to hear Jonald?
I don't know, but you got to figure he's got at least one fan out there. It's probably his mother, but at least that's one. So
yeah.
But right before the break, we were kind of wrapping up the biggest surprises and disappointments of the week. We just finished with running backs, kind of jumping into wide receivers. Who do you got for wide receivers for the biggest disappointments?
Well, obviously I said Calvin Johnson earlier. He's got to be one of the huge ones. Jeremy Curley, 1 catch, 3 yards. I know a lot of people are on him, especially with Decker kind of questionable this week. Michael Crabtree was another guy I had. I know he was injured for a little bit of the game. Only 5 catches, 43 yards. And Brandon Cooks, 5 catches, 31 yards.
Yeah, I would have thought he lit up the Dallas defense pretty well. A couple of guys that I ended up having, obviously Calvin Johnson being injured. There's nothing much you can do with the guy's injured. Calvin Johnson owners knew going into the game that he was going to be probably limited, so you can't expect too much. Jumping back to Thursday night, just because I wanted to add his name in there, Pierre Garçon, who pretty much has been lights out all season, has been great with Robert Griffin and Kirk Cousins. Only had 2 catches for 28 yards last Thursday. Cordell Patterson as well. Yeah. You figured with all the points that they put up that he would have at least had more than 2 catches himself. What do you make of that situation?
Well, yeah, it'll be interesting as we go along to see who Bridgewater's throwing to. Obviously, he's been the backup and through all of training camp. So he's obviously having a lot more chemistry with Wright, which we saw yesterday. I had Patterson pretty high this week, but only 2 catches. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of it until we see maybe another couple more games and see who his favorite targets are really going to be.
Yeah, you really can't judge rookie quarterbacks on who their favorite targets are right then and there. I mean, last year, E.J. Manuel was throwing the ball all over the field to Robert Woods and wasn't really looking at Stevie Johnson. This year, Woods hasn't had as much touches as he had before, obviously because he's got Sammy Watkins in there and the offense is not as clicking as well. So it's very early to tell with rookie quarterbacks who they're going to attach themselves on. You can look in what's happened in Jacksonville. He really hasn't established himself. Last week it was Allen Robinson, and then yesterday it was.
Yeah, I figured it would be Cecil Shorts yesterday, but he got injured.
Man, what's a shame that guy. He's such a talent, and he just can't stay healthy.
Yeah. I picked him up in one of my pay leagues for $4, and then he gets injured.
Yeah, it's just a shot in the arm right there. Jumping into the other pass-catching position, we had tight ends. One guy that I had I actually ranked him second this week because of the matchup they were playing. I'm sure you probably had him too. It was Antonio Gates.
Yeah, he was the one tight end disappointment I had on my list as well. Only 3 catches, 30 yards. Yeah, I didn't see what Ladarius Green's line was.
He actually had 0, and it wasn't a 0 because he didn't have any catches. He literally didn't see the field, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I know he was questionable heading into the week. That's why everybody is so high in Gates. Obviously, Jacksonville gives up a ton of points to tight ends. But Rivers had a huge game, 377 yards, and Gates only had 30 of those yards. Obviously, Keenan Allen was huge, Eddie Royal. So, yeah, that was definitely a disappointment for me.
I had one more just because of the matchup, and he still had a nice game. It was towards the top of the scoring for tight ends, and that was Jimmy Graham. I mean, Drew Brees should have been finding him all across the field all day. So,
yeah, in the first half, he was pretty much not even there, which is a huge surprise.
Exactly. But you know what? What's great about Star Fantasy Leagues is if you had Jimmy Graham last week, you don't have to have him next week because on Star Fantasy Leagues, we have the best daily, weekly, and season-long games. And right now, we are offering free money away. Can you believe free money?
Free money.
Free money. If you use a promo code when you sign up, free14, you get 100% up to $2,000. Plus, you get $11 credit into your account.
Love it.
I mean, why isn't everybody signing up right now? Why isn't our computer systems going down? I don't understand that.
$16,000 guaranteed for Week 5 NFL. Come on in.
It's pretty impressive. Again, if you're taking our advice over Jonathan Sprung, you're probably doing fantasy right. Take it easy.